I am currently in a hotel room. And of course, what do? I just spend the whole time on the internet. It's quite a nice room though. But anyway, um, I have just been watching a video about a bold guy who's talking about aliens coming, and um, I swear some people, they feel like they can just say whatever they want. Just whatever they want. Just out, 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 out. Say it like it's true. I'm concerned that people like him might have written the history books, because if that was the case, then I do not trust history books one tiny bit. But anyway, just gonna listen to some of the stuff that he's saying.
Yeah, but it will be something that is unquestionable. So obviously they would know what they're doing, and it would be something we can handle. So they will leave it up to us in terms of how to react to that, but it will be something we can probably handle. Otherwise, it would make no sense to do it. It would
He's
be
talking
no
about
point.
aliens.
So, and even when beings are introduced, I think they will be of a type that's more genetically related to us, something we can relate to, something that's easier for us to take. And over time, we would be introduced to other species that are more different than we are as we get used to the ones.
So he believes that aliens are going to contact Earth in the next 2 years, but first we're going to be contacted by sort of aliens that are like half human, half somewhere else, and then it's going to build up, and then it's going to build up, and there's going to be more different species of alien that start talking to Earth.
Ones that are more like us, we can start to expand and say, okay, now let's look at the ones that are not so much like us. And now we're really understanding a different culture and a different frequency. But they'll probably do it in a way that allows us the opportunity to gradually raise our frequency to match those frequencies later on as well.
So I have no idea what he's talking about these frequencies. You can only contact these people if you have a higher frequency, and if you have a higher frequency, then you can contact them. I mean, to be honest, I feel like he's talking about something that might be truthful to what people believe. But yeah, the whole of this beginning of this video was about how people's reality are very different, and some people's reality are going to go in this way, and some people's reality is going to be in this way, and at some point the people's reality is going to be so different that they won't be able to contact each other any longer. I mean, that sounds absolutely ridiculous, because just because it's your belief, that doesn't mean that it's reality. I mean, I was listening to what it was long and very long-winded, but the majority of it he was saying was that you can make your own reality and everyone has a different reality, but that's not true. That's not how I would see it. I would say people have their own beliefs and their own intake. You can believe that someone is a horrible bitch or a nasty person. They don't believe that. Now, just because that's your reality, that doesn't mean that it is the reality. Hence, reality is the wrong word. This is your belief. Just because it's your belief and their belief is different, that doesn't mean that it's the truth. And therefore, he's confusing beliefs with reality, because he somehow seems to think that if you believe something, it's therefore your reality because it's true for you. And it's just like, well, no. If you think someone's a nasty person and it's true for you, that doesn't mean that it's the truth, and therefore it's not the reality. It's just your belief on what reality is, and therefore he's not understanding things. But yeah, this is about aliens, and I think there's going to be a time, I predict that there's going to be a time where people first hear about me and think that I'm Christ, and okay, they don't believe at first, but they come round to the idea that I'm Christ, but I'm also human, and then they start believing that the singers are angels, they're the prophesied, they have public profiles that have character names and hidden names, but I think then people are going to start taking it a step further and start thinking, wait, these people are not born on Earth. They're obviously souls that have come from different planets, and I think the celebrities are probably going to deny it and say, no, we were all here. I think a lot of the celebrities were cavemen a long, long time ago, hence they would have been very uninvolved, hence they haven't come from another planet. But I think a lot of people like him, might not start believing that. They might, people that want to believe that, aliens have been in contact, because he just said on this interview that he believes that, different species from different galactics have been contacting Earth for thousands of years, and only they've just done it through the Native Americans and things like that, but Western culture hasn't accepted it. He's not believing the truth. He's just believing whatever he wants. But the thing is, with people with beliefs, their beliefs are going to be so strong that when other people say that, no, we don't believe that, they're just going to be like, well, you're just believing the wrong thing. And, to him, his beliefs are his reality, and he doesn't realize that just because you believe something, that doesn't make it the reality. But he's not understanding that.
Well, because again, if they don't do it that way, it would make no sense.
What would humanity do? What's your opinion of what I mean, if UFOs show up, we've been trained by movies in Hollywood, which you've been part of, actually literally making Star Trek, of these kind of like evil aliens or Independence Day, which we've discussed on other shows. Like, it's not possible to have the aliens come in who are going to take over, because their frequency has to be at a certain level to even be able to have that technology to even come here. So if they're here, they're not going to come over to take over or to mine.
I really have no idea what it's talking about. How can you only talk to people if you have a higher frequency? I don't understand what they're inventing something there.
Gold or steal our water or anything like that. That's not what they're coming here to do. So when that event happens, based on, we just talked about what movies tell us about time travel. What movies tell us about aliens, if
To give us is, here's the.
I think when people talk about higher frequency, what they're really doing is they want to believe that there's some voice in their head and that they can hear these voices because they have a higher frequency. And so the preachingness of people preaching that I can only contact these spirits because I have a higher frequency, it's their way of saying I can do something that you can't. So if you can't hear an imaginary voice in your head, that's only because you don't have a higher frequency. And so I feel like this lie about the higher frequency is just about people being, a lot of people the people who wrote the Bible might have said that they could tap into the Spirit of God because they had a higher frequency, but it's nonsense. There's people who can see truth and people who can't see truth, but part of seeing truth is being able to see what is the reality and not just saying that this is my belief, hence I make it my reality because I believe it. And a lot of people don't want to see the reality, that they would start making up nonsense about having a higher frequency, which means that they can contact and do things that other people can't, and I don't believe in that.
Time frame they needed to, so they needed help. And they used their very advanced genetic technology to infuse their genes into the natural hominid that existed on the earth at the time.
So this, I just skipped a little bit. He believes that aliens are the ones who created the human species, and they had genetics that came down to Earth and created the human species. Should I go back to? I accidentally pressed the button.
To do with something of using it to balance out the climate or some situation on their planet that had gotten out of balance. And it was a very large-scale task. They found that the group that came here wasn't necessarily sizable enough to achieve the task in the time frame they needed to, so they needed help. And they used their very advanced genetic technology to infuse their genes into the natural hominid that existed on the earth at the time.
I just don't understand how people can do things like this. So in the beginning there was this genes, and they had this war on their planet, and they've come here, and this is what happened. How can you say all this and promote it as if it's the truth when there's not one tiny bit of evidence to support this, not one tiny bit of anything to back this up and say that this is the truth? If people really wanted to know the truth, they would say, I'm not going to believe something or preach it or promote it unless I actually have evidence. But a lot of people that talk about frequency might just be like, oh yeah, well, I've contacted something through my head and this is the story that they gave me, and therefore I'm just going to present it as this is the truth. Because why? Because I want people to listen to me, and I don't care about knowing the actual truth.
Homo erectus or what have you, and basically created Homo sapiens. And Homo sapiens were used as workers to help them mine the gold and all this. Now, a lot of this is supposed.
So he's saying that the aliens used Homo sapiens as slaves right at the early age. Where's this proof of this other species, that other intelligent species that was here? Why did they leave? Why are they not here now? It's just, why did they not help give the early humans technology that could be passed on, and then for technology could have been created thousands of years ago? You know, he's just saying shit, and he doesn't care.
Supposedly what's couched in biblical phrases of, man being made in the image of God, because these ETs were looked at as gods because of their abilities and all this. But
ETs were looked on as gods. They weren't here, and that there's no ETs have not come in the form that he's talking about.
From what I understand, this group was not supposed to have done that. And that was kind of outside of their laws to have used their genes to create Homo sapiens as a new species, that we were supposed to be left to evolve on our own. And they accelerated all of that and changed all of that. And so they were recalled because, again, they had done something they weren't supposed to do. And from that point forward, the rest of the Anu society realized,
why, if this story was true and they created human species, why were they not supposed to do that? I'm confused. He's just talking a load of shit.
Okay, well, now that this group of beings, Homo sapiens, has been created, we're kind of responsible for them. So we're going to have to guide them for a while. We're going to have to see what they can do. We're going to have to help them a little bit, but then eventually we're going to have to kind of pull back, remain in the background, and see if they can make it on their own. So, again...
So he thinks that a bunch of aliens have just been spying on humans for thousands of years without making their presence known, without actually helping us, without doing anything.
I think in a nutshell, that is the story of the Anu as it relates to the creation of Homo sapiens, and why there are such stories in ancient texts like the Bible of people being, cultures being led through the desert by the pillar of fire and cloud, and Ezekiel seeing these, this ring within rings coming down on a mountaintop, and interactions between humans and extraterrestrials as guides to help us build a culture that...
The Bible does not talk about extraterrestrials guiding people through the deserts. It was supposed to be Moses, a character that might not even be a real character.
We would ultimately be able to sustain and take our place among, the sentient beings of the galaxy. So, long story short.
Has Bashar ever spoken about them?
What I just told you is what he's said.
Oh, that's all his stuff. That's basically
That's the voice in his head that he's just made up.
That's not everything he said. That's the nutshell Reader's Digest version.
Because and for people to understand, this is in stone. It's Sumerian texts and clay tablets and things like that. This is an old. I mean, it's up there with the Epic of Gilgamesh in that time period. So,
if Baba Black Sheep was written on stone, it doesn't mean that it's a true story.
It's ancient history, and so I always find it fascinating. I'm like, why would they sit down and write a story? It was tough writing back then.
They're recording what happened. Basically, now there's a lot of misinterpretations and misunderstandings and things that have been lost over time due to a variety of destructions on Earth and natural disasters and all that. So we don't necessarily have the whole story. It's not necessarily clear. It's, the ancient idea of the game of telephone. One person says something, and by the time it's completely different. So that's another reason why I think it's going to be so important that...
I don't understand how people can have intelligent conversations about stories that are thousands of years old, but try and have intelligent conversations about the 1,000-year-old stories and talk as if it's the truth, and that maybe not the whole truth has been revealed in the story because we've only got a part of it, but yes, if a story is written, it must be because it's got some truth to it.
one of the gifts the ETs are actually going to give us is, here's the actual, we're going to fill those gaps for you. Here's the history. Now you have your entire history going back hundreds of thousands of years. And now you know where you came from, so now you know where you're going.
Me. I was the tiny gap that changed Homo sapiens from Neanderthals, and you just evolved. And the reason why aliens haven't helped you is because aliens don't exist. I am technically, I guess my spirit is from a different planet, so I am technically an alien, but I'm not, because I have no memory of being that person or being on any other planet. It's my higher self that has the memory, and my higher self is feeding you memory and information, but she can only do it if you're smart. You were not smart back in the past, so the information that you received was very, very limited, because your ability, I don't believe that your frequency, I don't think it's got anything to do with frequency, it's got things to do with intelligence. Intelligent people are people who can pick up on truth based on what is rational and logical and stuff, and not just say, oh yes, I have truth because I'm picking up on a higher frequency. It's higher frequency on some ways, but it's actually intelligence. It's an ability to be able to see the truth. And if you are a sort of person that just wants to pick up on 1,000-year-old stories and just say, oh, this is the truth because the voice in my head said so, and I can hear this voice in my head because my higher frequency is higher than yours, if you're someone like that, then that's non-intelligent, and I don't think you're picking up. You might be picking up on some truth, but I don't think it's the truth.
Kind of thing,
But I have to ask you, because you and I are both human. At least I think so.
Are we?
Are we though? I don't know. No, that we're both of this time and this place,
Right.
and we understand the realities of this reality, of human nature, of also the
of human learning.
I don't think he understands reality. I think he is a fantasist a bit, and I think human beliefs is him learning. If he believes in something, I feel like he would consider that to be learning. Really, he's just learning lies and seeing that as the truth.
Hey, why does it seem so hard
And there's an
to
advert.
sell your services? Well,
when I say human nature, is the nature that human beings the traits that human beings tend to put out there. So ego, power hungry,
Much of which is learning, not nature.
right? Okay, so human learning. Got it.
Having ego is learning. I don't think having ego is learning. Having ego is not learning and just believing whatever you want to believe.
Human programming. So human programming. That's even better. I like that. So we both understand human programming in the sense of ego, power hungry, scarcity. I doubt that this is all going to be wiped away the second they show up, because if they provide new technology or they provide this information, I can't believe our leaders are going to go, oh, thank God, let's just give, let's everyone kumbaya.
Well, I think a lot of things will change. If people knew that God was female and Christ was female and that they've understood everything incorrectly, the moment they believe that that's the truth, it is going to make them question everything. Because there's a lot of people out there that think that if you believe something, it is therefore your reality. Therefore, if Jesus is real, it's therefore the reality because it's your belief. And that's the sort of thing that he was preaching earlier in this video. And when they realize that actually you can believe in Jesus being a real person as much as you want, but AJ Miller's the best you're going to get. He's not actually a real Christ. You can believe that God the Father is the real God of this world, but you can believe it as much as you want and it's not the truth. So
And get together. How long is this going to take for this transition?
A few
humanity?
decades, at least a few decades.
few
if not longer.
decades.
But again, that's the thing I was mentioning about the behind the scenes. There have been things going on for a while that people are not talking about. We're already more used to this than we think.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there already has been an exchange of technology. I think there has already been guidance to some of this. So I think when the rest of humanity sort of joins the club, I think one of the things we're going to be understanding is, yeah, we've been at this for a little while. And so we are now at a place where we feel comfortable telling you that we've already been ramping up for decades.
Not for decades. You've known about me since 2013, and people have been building up to something. I really hope that it's going to happen soon. You know, it's been so long that I'm just like, I feel like I've just given up on. I'm not working, and I'm not working because I believe that something's going to happen very soon. But I've been believing that for 13 years, but it's not been decades. You have not known the truth. You've not known that you're living in a computer for decades.
And now we're letting you in on the fact that we've been ramping up for decades. So it's not such a big transition to assume.
I think the fact that he thinks that this has been ramping up for decades, this means that he can take all the stories from the past that are like 1,000 years old and be like, oh yeah, see, this is proof because they had he almost believes that people thousands of years ago were receiving truth, but by preaching things like this, he can almost say whatever he wants and just get away with it because we don't know what they were thinking or saying or telling thousands of years ago. So by indicating that that they've been building up for decades, then he can just basically say whatever he wants.
Assume that in another few decades we could really all have, be on the same page at that point. But yes, it will take some time. Not everyone is going to jump on board. Not everyone, and a lot of people will probably freak out and all that kind of stuff, but a lot of people won't. And again, this goes back to the thing about the splitting prism into different parallel realities. Those that just can't handle it, they'll go into a different reality where contact doesn't occur. Those that can handle it will stay in the realities where contact does occur. So
I have no idea what he's talking about. There's a splitting of reality where people who don't believe will just continue living life as if they don't believe. I mean, I think there's a truth as in people who don't think that I'm God or Christ will just continue living like I'm not God or Christ. But eventually Christianity is going to die, and there's not going to be many other options. If they want to believe in God, there's not going to be very many options because the smart people are not going to be promoting lies, and therefore they will have to accept it. Will they care is another question. I don't know.
So we all have the ability to go into whatever parallel version of Earth suits us and suits our soul's path at this moment.
Yeah, you all just go into your own parallel universe. So you can all just live in your own different parallel universe on Earth. That doesn't make any sense. That does not make any sense.
We don't all have to be subjected to the same thing.
Let's say that ETs show up and they knock on our door, and everyone's on CNN, it's on Fox, it's everywhere, and all of a sudden, we have proof of there's something else out there.
Me.
I gotta believe that's gonna throw a couple of ripples into religion.
Sure. There'll be ripples in every aspect of society. Of course there will be.
Yeah.
Of course there will be. But
Because
again,
a lot of truths that we've been taught and programmed to believe are going to be thrown out the window, and that's a fairly jarring scenario.
for people that are willing to throw them out, yes. For people that are not, now we go back again to the parallel versions of Earth.
I'm going to stop now. This guy just isn't living in reality. You know, if the big news hits Earth, or the news, it's going to change everyone, not just some people.